gigantic. They're monsters, destroying everything in their path. It's the invasion of the Creepy Menace.
Now, not all invasive species are creepy and crawly. Eastern red cedar trees are not native to Oklahoma, but they now can be found in nearly every pasture, robbing the land of moisture and even posing a fire threat, not to mention irritating our allergies. For Julie Adams, the arrival of spring brings more than just green grass.
This is sick. A lot of sneezing, a lot of allergy problems, and people complain about it out here a great deal.
Like millions of Americans, Adams suffers from springtime allergies, made worse by the spread of an invasive tree called the Eastern Red Cedar.
It's a lot of sneezes, yes.
Estelle Levetin studies the spread of pollen in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, this is Eastern Red Cedar.
And says no time is worse than right now.
Well, it makes sense. With more cedars, there's more cedar pollen. We know the pollen triggers allergies, so we can assume that there are more people allergic to cedar pollen.
And to say there are more cedar trees now than in the past is a bit of an understatement. Since the 1950s, we've seen the trees take over about 9 million acres in Oklahoma, about 15% of the state's total land area. John Birdwell is Oklahoma's state forester.
Well, with the influx of all these trees, it's got to be changing our ecosystem, and I'm assuming that does have an economic impact.
Absolutely, it has an economic impact, especially on the people who rely on their rangeland for their livelihood. Cedar is growing greatly across the landscape, and it's mostly growing in areas that aren't very heavily managed, and because of that, all the different ways that Eastern Red Cedar can spread, they cause ranchers a lot of problems.
Not to mention homeowners, the expense that they incur because of the fire danger that cedars do pose.
Well, there's no doubt that Eastern Red Cedar is a very flammable fuel, and where large concentrations of Eastern Red Cedar have been allowed to establish themselves, the fire danger rises sharply.
Cedar trees ignited by grass or wildland fires ignite violently. It's a very fast, rapidly growing fire, and engulfs itself, puts off a lot of fire brands or embers that can be carried in the wind distances and have the potential to ignite a lot of other fuels.
To lessen the danger, Dill recommends homeowners remove cedar trees from around their homes, something Julie Adams has done, in part for safety, but also to battle those pesky allergies.
I'm hoping it'll decrease the allergy problems that we have out here, as well as make it a nicer place to live on.
But the fire threat cedar trees pose may in fact be the key to their control. As Ron Dahlgren reports, controlled burns can help alleviate the threat of wildfire that cedar trees pose.
From vast expanse of prairie grass to forest, that transition has happened and is happening in many areas of Oklahoma in just one generation, thanks to an explosive invasion of Eastern Red Cedar.
Well, historically, it was very uncommon across the landscape, but with the advent of European culture and the lack of fire suppression over the last 100 years, red cedar spread across the landscape, and now we're in what we call an exponential growth of that plant, which it's just taking up lots of acres every year.
Case in point, the Nature Conservancy's Tall Grass Prairie Preserve in Osage County.
You don't see much Eastern Red Cedar here now, but if you could have come here 10 years ago, you would have seen quite a bit. Eastern Red Cedar and a number of other woody plants are really aggressive invaders, and it's fire that keeps them in check. And without that fire, without that ecological force, they quickly escape their bounds and spill out onto areas that they had not colonized before.
That's why the Conservancy reintroduced fire to the preserve, to control cedars and bring back what once was a prairie, produced by fire, set by Mother Nature and Native Americans.
The Native Americans were real land managers. They burned the prairie very heavily, especially in the fall. And that is what kept a prairie a prairie. We get enough rainfall here, this land would be a forested landscape without fire. Fire is the main ecological force that keeps this a prairie.
But prairies aren't the only areas ruined by cedars. They've altered the entire Oklahoma landscape.
Now, the cedar changed both the complexities of the forest and the shrublands, and particularly the prairies. Now, unfortunately, people don't understand they're very easy to control.
And that control method, Bidwell says, is controlled or prescribed fire every few years to kill small trees, preventing them from attaining reproductive maturity.